Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Rav Dessler. We're going to do a piece on Elul. I know I wanted to do something else, but I like this piece a lot. And I think it's a great time to kind of double down on this concept of Elul. People say that there's a quotes of how in the olden times people would say the word Elul and they would faint. I joke around, but I really believe that's very much an Ashkenazi way of thinking about the month of Elul. Elul is Melech Besadeh. Hashem is in the field. He is here with us. That should be the most heartwarming thing in the world. You have a God that loves you deeply, cares for you. This is not a time to panic. This is a time to double down and figure out how you could build that relationship up in the most profound way possible. Rav Dessler, this is his hakdama to Chodesh Elul. He quotes a pasuk in Hosea. He says, "Ki yesharim darchei Hashem tzadikim yilchu bam upeshayim yichshalu bam." The ways of tzaddik are straight, yesharim. The tzaddik uses them for progress, and the rebel comes to failure by them. Meaning, the path of someone who is a just man, his yeshrut, he's straight. He's always moving forward to do what Hashem wants. The ways of Hashem are straight. This is what Rav Dessler says. Right? Darchei Hashem hen darchei b'hanagad kafi shnitnu lanu lahasigam. There should be no possibility of taking the wrong turn. There are no turns. But if one does not want the truth, if one rebels, if one is looking for a way out, even the ways of God, even the precious gifts of God can lead to failure, he says. When one is making progress in the life of the Spirit, many doors open before him, but there is no standing still. If one thinks one is standing still, in truth, he is falling. And I say this all the time, and very simply, if the world is moving around and you are standing still, you are going backwards. If you're going on an escalator, right, and you're not moving, right, and the escalator is going the opposite direction, you're going backwards no matter what happens. You're always moving backwards. In Judaism, there's only one thing. It's called progress. It's called growth. It's called development. There is no standing still. There's only winners and losers. And if you're a loser, I get it. Judaism is not for you. But if you want to be a winner, if you want to be a peak performer, if you want to live a life of excellence, then the Torah demands that you find a way to progress and move forward. Rav Dessler says there's nothing worse than this, moving backwards. The very ways of God used by the tzaddik as a means of progress lead to failure when used by the rebel. Everything in life is a challenge. Everything is a test. The very means given by God to achieve aliyah, spiritual ascent, can be used by the Yetzer Hara for the opposite, because there has to be a balance. Anytime you're being pulled in one way, you have to be pulled in the opposite way. That's how you and I maintain our free will. But he says over here, surely there can be no greater gift than the Torah itself. Torah learning and practice, doing, limud Torah, masiyot tovot, maasim tovim, right? Learning and practice is God's supreme gift for the spiritual ennoblement of the Jew. The whole idea that you have a regiment of, aseh Toratecha keva, make yourself a time where you're learning Torah every single day. The fact that you're thinking about how to give tzedakah, how to do maasim tovim, this is part of how we become better, greater human beings. That's how I leave this sense of selfishness, and I stop thinking about only me. All day I'm worrying about me, my money, my future, and that's important. Do all those things. No one has ever become poor by giving. We're remembered for what we give more than anything else. So Hashem wants us to be a giver like He is, and He challenges us. And yet, Rav Dessler says it all depends. Of one's merits if one merits, right? If you're this chut, it is an elixir of life, and if not, it can be a deadly poison. Meaning, the Torah learning itself can be a positive thing or a negative thing. What is this mysterious poison that the Torah harbors for one who used it the wrong way? How does that happen? If it's such a positive thing, how does it become poisonous for the wrong guy? We discussed this in an earlier a letter that he wrote. He says we shall suggest that the Torah becomes dangerous when it is learned without the fear of God. This is so true. Unfortunately, so many schools today, they're teaching not Chumash, not Torah, they're teaching biblical literature. They're not teaching Gemara, they're teaching ancient Babylonian literature. That's not Torah. If there's Reshit Chochmah Yirat Hashem, the beginning of all wisdom is having fear of Hashem. When people become academics when it comes to their Limud Torah, they're losing out on the depth of what Torah does for the neshama, which is force it to make an aliyah. You can't just study it like, oh, some guy wrote it, 3,000 years ago, and therefore it's the mind of a man. This Torah was not given by the mind of a man. It was given by the mind of an infinite being that has no limits, that knows everything, and gave it through a man, because I think that it's through the man's voice that it becomes somewhat more tangible. Otherwise, it would be too much for us. Hashem distills his infinite wisdom through humanity and through the prophets, so that you and I have the ability of tapping into some of its infinite wisdom. So he says the rabbis compare a person who learns Torah without Yirat Shamayim to a farmer who stores a large amount of grain without dusting it with a preservative against rot. If you leave grain on its own, it's going to get bad. So he's, quote, it would have been better if he had never stored it in the first place, warned the sages. It's Gemara and Shabbat. The question then arises, perhaps then, in view of our lack of Yirat Shamayim, we should refrain from learning Torah altogether. Meaning, if you and I don't have the proper Yirat Shamayim, maybe we should not be learning Torah. Maybe if we're going to learn Torah in the wrong way, we will corrupt it. But this is a foolish question. If in these circumstances the Holy Torah is dangerous for us, how immeasurably more dangerous is the Torah of the street, which would inevitably absorb in the absence of Torah. Meaning, like, it's one thing to say that's going to go bad, but better to have something than nothing. It's much worse if you have no morals. When the rabbi said it would have been better never to have stored it, they were speaking from a point of view of the Torah. It's certainly not an honor for the Torah if its wonderful precepts and ideas are misused by unworthy people. We see this all the time. Today there was an article of some Haredi guy in Israel who was exposed as being a Jew for Jesus, and using everything that he learned from the Torah to still corrupt the minds of the people. So Torah can be a weapon that is used in a negative way, but at its purest form, it is the most powerful tool for building a future of hope, building people, helping people overcome their challenges. But for people themselves, the Torah is certainly incomparably better than all those other teachers who are always ready to take its place. So much of what I learned as a child came from what I learned in the street, in my friends, on the buses, not in the right places, from the wrong places. I wish I had people who are surrounded by Torah who were able to, pass on these deep pearls of wisdom so I could live a more meaningful life. But the danger is this: if a person learns Torah without being aroused by it to improve his moral and spiritual standards, then the more he learns, the worse the situation will be. If you not listening to this because you want to become a better, greater person, then this will hurt you. One who deliberately and consistently makes himself deaf to the demands of the spiritual progressively reduces his own sensitivity. His very ability to hear the voice of God dies within him. This ability is the living spirit of man, and anything that weakens it or stunts it is a spiritual poison. So by his own refusal to take his demand seriously, a person can turn Torah itself into a poison. On the other hand, if he does not learn Torah, his condition is much worse. There's only one way out of this dilemma, and it will be discussed, Bezrat Hashem, more deeply tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.